Hey guys, this is future editing Amy. Apologies for the appearance, but I usually don't, do a full face of makeup for editing. I'm just going to give you a quick run through of why this video was so hard to edit, and if you spot any mistakes in it, or if you think, oh, this isn't, up to usual quality, this is why. So, I recorded my side of the conversation on my computer using screen capture software, and Kaz did this on the other side. However, for some strange reason it didn't record our audio through our external microphones, so each side of the footage only has one side of the conversation on it, which means I'm having to flip through, and it's, the conversation's quite hard to make natural. If that wasn't hard enough, there was an intense lag on any of my side of the conversation, so I've had to extract all the audio and manually sync it up because can't find a better way of doing it. There probably is a better way of doing it. I've tried loads of automatic software, I've tried to fix it myself, but that's the only way I could find. So if the audio and the video isn't syncing up right, that's because I've had to manually sync them. For the second part of the video, only my side recorded. For some strange reason it recorded both sides of the audio, but it didn't record any of the actual conversation, the footage from the conversation. It just recorded the Skype home screen. I can't work out why. I don't want to have to ask to redo the interview because this video has to go up quite soon, and so this is what we've got to work with, and I've tried my best, and here we are.
Hey guys, I'm the Green Crayon, and this is the August book club, which is slightly different than usual because instead of me being in front of my shelves over there talking about a book, we have an actual author. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I could just be a mystery the whole way through. I am the Green and Gold Crayon. I am C.S. Bully. I'm a author of many different genres, and I live in Nottingham in the UK.
This is just a disclaimer for anyone watching first. This is the first time I've ever recorded a Skype conversation, so I'm really sorry in advance. It'll probably be fine. Maybe not. We'll see. Also, you're in a pub, and
in the Three Crowns, which is owned by the Cats and Wickets Company. It's in Wymeswold, which is in Leicestershire, so it's just over the border, literally, from where I live in Nottingham. It's owned by the lovely Dan, who is currently behind the bar today, and it's owned by two Nottinghamshire county cricketers, Stuart Broad and Harry Gurney, and I absolutely adore the pub. It has the most amazing food. I tend to come in right here as well, so most of the days I kind of sit in the corner I'm in now, on the opposite side of the table, but there's a dartboard there and it's not a very pretty looking aspect, so sitting on the opposite side right now.
Right, usually we start the book club with talking about which book we've read. However, I don't think it really counts this time, but I'm gonna put it in anyway, because even though most of the questions I'm gonna ask you are more about writing in general rather than the specific book, feel free to add anything you want about it, but the book that we technically read / wrote is A Thief in Sickleback Hollow by C.S. Woolley, which you can't see. There we go. And the first question is a question that was one of the first things that I wanted to ask when I was reading this, but that was, you have loads of pages of historical notes at the end. You're not going to be able to see because of how incredibly washed out I am. So my question is, how long did it take you to do all the research? Did you do it all specifically for this, or was it just something that you was interested in already?
I grew up in Cheshire, so Cheshire is my home county, which is why the book is set in Victorian Cheshire. So when I was writing the book, as I came up to things I wanted to include in the story, I went away and then researched that specific thing. So when I wanted to bring in a hospital, I kind of went and looked for the history of the hospitals in the area and which one I wanted to use. So I kind of knew I wanted to include the Manchester Royal Infirmary, but I needed to find out what the history of the place was before I could really write it in. And then, having researched it, I then incorporated it in. The same with the police force. My dad is now a retired policeman, but he was part of the Cheshire Constabulary. So I knew some of the history of the police force before I wrote the book. But when actually using this book, I didn't know when it had been established or that kind of thing. But then looking back in the history of it, it's kind of easy to find that sort of thing out. I mean, one of the really nice things about one of the reasons I chose to do the early 1800s for these books in particular is the fact that there was still a lot of spiritualism around, and so there can be more spooky goings on. There can be more psychological elements to it. There are people disappearing. People genuinely believe people did get taken by goblins and ghouls and other things like that.
Moving away from more like the era and more the book itself, kind of, is there any characters or any settings that are based on anything from your real life? You've already said that, obviously, Cheshire. I feel like you just answered all of these questions already.
Most of the characters in the books are named after cricketers. So for anybody who doesn't know me watching this, I am massively into my cricket. It might be on the screen behind me right now. That's England, South Africa, for anyone who's interested. I wrote the book for my mum originally. So I think Stickleback Collar was written for my mum because she didn't really like any of my other books. It's not that, you know, she didn't appreciate the writing, they're just not what she would choose to read. She wants to write something that was for her and something that she would really enjoy and could read and be like, actually, this is really nice. They were written with my mum in mind. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm writing with my mum in mind, then let's bring it close to home. Let's put it in Cheshire, because actually she'll find it interesting learning about all these things. I mean, when she started reading the book, she got about halfway through and she called me about it and was like, so was this the such and person? Were they really the dean of the Chester Cathedral? Was such and such? It's just like, well, wait till the end and read. It says it all in historical.
Who would you want to be friends with?
The Rising Empire trilogy, which is in the fantasy book series, I would absolutely love to be friends with Nathanlin and Shaul. I'm giving too much away about them. They're both spies for the Order that appears in the Chronicles of Kelledmore, and they are very good at infiltrating places, but they're also very down to earth. They're manly men. Then in the Shroud of Darkness trilogy, which is 400 years after the Rising Empire trilogy in the Chronicles of Kelledmore, I don't care which it is, and apparently I get told off for this all the time, because if I don't know, how is anyone else meant to know? In that series it would definitely be Caslow, for pretty much the same reason. In the Raven Siren series, definitely Siren, because you wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of her. Then there's in the Children of Reba books, so that's the Kids Viking series, probably want to be friends with Eva, because she's just cool. She is very, very cool from start to finish. Very self-aware of who she is, and she really doesn't give a damn what anybody thinks about her. She is herself, and she's just going to get it on with it. In the Children of Snottinghast series, probably want to be friends with Kip. And I can't really explain why at this point, because it would give way too much away about what's coming up in the story. But Kip is a very, very interesting character. And then in the Mysteries of Stickleback Collar books, that I would, of all the characters, probably the Doctor.
Did you know where the whole series was going to go once, like, as you were writing the first one? Did you plan out the whole thing before writing it, or was it just a go with the flow?
For the Mysteries of Stickleback Hollow, I have an idea of where each book was going before I'd even started writing the first one. Only to give me a limit for what was going to happen, but to also gauge how much should happen in each book.
How long did it take for you to write? As you have written 65 books, which is crazy.
Different length of time to write. So when I started the books I have now, so I started writing the Chronicles of Kelledmore when I was 12 years old. Not at all the same as it was back then. It has gone through a very big evolution. I mean, that took 12 years to finish because it kept being rewritten as I grew up and my writing style changed. And then the Raven Siren books, I started writing when I was 16.
What advice would you give to someone who was writing their first book?
Advice I can give to anyone who's writing their first book is do not compare yourself to anybody else. Anybody else is doing, or your writing style to anybody else. Write what you enjoy writing and write for yourself. Because if you write for yourself and nobody else's approval, you are always going to be happy with what you produce. There are an awful lot of blogs and writing websites out there that say, oh, these are do's and don'ts of writing. There is no such thing. There are days when you are going to wish you'd never started writing. At 65 books, I still have those days where I really wish I'd never started.
What do you do when you want to give up?
I want to give up. I turn on one of my consoles, I put on an RPG, I kill a lot of things until I've kind of like got my head in order. Generally when I'm frustrated or I have writer's block or I just kind of want to give it all up, I do that. Do I know indie authors? I've got indie authors coming out my ears. One of my favourite indie writers is a girl called Kelly Marsden. Or she writes under Kelly S. Marsden, I think. And she writes some great fantasy books. I could promote the people's books that I actually publish. That would be a good thing, wouldn't it? Stephen M. Caddy, who's started this, well, it's going to be a trilogy, he tells me. He's done the first book in the trilogy, which is In Exchange. And it's kind of a space book for boys. But it's a book of discovery and adventure, and there's space and there's disaster and there's all sorts of fun in there. And there's Penelope Wallace, who's started a series called The Tales from Ragaris, or The Tales of Ragaris, from Ragaris. Just in the process actually of getting her second book in that series together. Her first book is called We Do Not Kill Children, and it's a fantasy detective series. And then there's Marlene R. Smith, who's written a book called Brothers. There's a sequel coming to it, and the best way to describe that is, if you like Halo, you'll like this book.
How do you publish, how do you go about it? Because obviously you own your own, like, indie publishing company, organisation, I don't know what you'd call it. How do you actually go about that?
Setting up the company is a very complicated process. You really don't want to do that.
I mean, that's a long video.
That's a very long video.
More about, like, you've got the book on your computer. How do you then create it into the physical book without going through a large...
So the best thing to do is to get yourself an editor or a copywriter and get them to read your book before you do anything else with it. Get them to read through it, get them to question everything in it, and then go back through it. Because I can guarantee you, especially on your first book, you'll have made a mistake somewhere. When you've got finally a manuscript that you're happy with, the next thing is cover art. If you can't design cover art yourself, then pay someone else to do it. That is the best advice I can give. When you've got that sorted, you have a couple of options depending on how you want to publish it. So if you're wanting it just to go out on Kindle and just to be available through Amazon, you can do that. And you can do that through the KDP platform. And that is a very, very simple process, and it takes you through it step by step. And all you have to have is a Word doc or a PDF of the book file that's set to their parameters, and they actually list them on the KDP platform so that you can go through and
that's pretty simple then.
And just follow that, and so you can get your book out very simply that way. A lot of the work starts after you finish writing the book and after you click that publish button, because then it becomes the marketing king, and that can be soul destroying. And there are a lot of people out there who are offering book services and guaranteeing we'll put it in our newsletter that goes out to X, Y, and Z, and you should get, this is what our other people have got, is returns. Nearly every single time you will be disappointed with the return, because you might sell one book.
Yeah, you can't guarantee anything.
99% of the time you won't sell anything, and it will cost you a fortune to do this and will have almost zero impact on it. The best thing you can do is talk to people, go out into the world, talk to people about the book. If you've got a book published, try and get to one of the indie events. There are loads and loads of pop-up book events.
Do you use like an external company to actually make the physical books?
So for example, if you wanted to go through Kindle and only through Kindle, you can also do your paperback at the same time as doing your digital copy, and we'll do it through there. I use print on demand services rather than book run printing, because in the long run it's much cheaper to do print on demand. So you don't necessarily have a book run, so books won't necessarily be worth the same amount to different people, because you don't have first editions. But what you do have instead is a way that you can actually quickly react to supply and demand.
Yeah, especially if you don't know how many you're gonna sell as well. Yeah.
You also don't have to pay for the storage of the books, because believe me, paying for the storage of books is killer.
I've got some booky questions now. There's only 4, I promise. We're nearly done. What's your favourite book?
My favourite, I have a couple of favourite books, because I think it's a bit difficult. One.
One.
Alright, The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas.
Okay. That was easier than I anticipated. What was the first book that made you cry?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Which was the first book that made me cry? I can tell you the first book I stayed up all night reading, but I can't tell you which was the first book that made me cry.
Well, okay, what was the first book that you stayed up all night reading?
Winning by Ginny Elliott. I read it all in one night. I did not sleep at all.
I'm
I
sure
was
you did
very-
just later.
No, I was very, very tired at school the next day.
What books do you think have influenced your writing?
C.S. Lewis more than anybody else. I absolutely love the Chronicles of Narnia.
Okay.
And Bernard Cornwell's books, so the Sharp series that he wrote,
Mhm.
have been pretty influential. I mean, those were the books that I've read more than anything else, I think. I mean, I have lots and lots of books, but they've definitely been really influential on how I write. My best friend told me, after reading the Chronicles of Kellenmore, that there's a book series by a guy called Raymond E. Feist, which are very, very similar. So he's got a very similar
Okay.
writing style to me. So I've started reading those now because my bestie suggested reading them because it will not only help develop my style, but things that I see in his writing that I don't really like,
You could not
I
do.
can avoid. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
avoid them in my own book. So I'm kind of doing that at the moment.
That was actually the next question, which was, do you think your writing style is, like, do you know any authors that are similar to your writing style?
So Raymond E. Feist is one that apparently I'm similar to for the Chronicles of Kellenmore. My writing style changes from series to series, as
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it does. I've officially run out of questions, so is there anything else you would like to say?
Other than thank you for having me on, Amy.
Thank you for, I was going to say thank you for agreeing to do the interview, but it was kind of a mutual,
It was to make sure this would be a good idea.
so I guess thank you for turning up.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me at the pub.
Thank you for joining me in my room.
And as you know, if you're close to Wormsworld, come down to the pub. It's very nice.
Yeah, I'll link everything. Everything will be.
Everything will be linked.
Yeah, you'll probably find a lone author sitting somewhere in a corner.
With a laptop with what cat and wicket stickers on the back of it.
Probably watching the cricket.
Probably watching the cricket. And if I'm not watching to it, I'm probably listening to it.
Either way. If you have any requests or questions, then leave them in the comments. New videos.
If you have any questions about the pub, I can, also pass those on to be answered.
Yeah, sure. New videos every Wednesday. If you have any questions for Kaz, I will pass them on. If that's okay with you.
That's fine.
Sure. If you leave it in, I will pass them on and reply in the comments what your reply is. Pretty sure that's everything. Thank you for doing the video.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go have lunch now.
Okay, I will let you have lunch. I think I'm gonna go have lunch as well.
Sounds like a good plan. Bye!
Bye!
Then in the... This is Dan.
Hi, how you doing?
Dan is one of the co-owners of the pub that I've been telling you all about, and Andy the head chef is hiding behind the laptop.
Respect.
So you want to say Andy to turn around and say hello as well. This is Andy the head chef. This is Amy, and I'm being interviewed for her book blog.
Oh, it's that one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's alright, you haven't ruined it. You've provided extra entertainment for this wonderful thing.